Good money, magic deals, incognitoes of all kinds. It is I, Kaiba the Pug. We're in the car. It's Sunday. You know what that means. It's time for Super Deck Sunday. Sunday. And we just finished my park trip, and I kind of want to get going in the house, but Daddy says that we can't go home just yet because we got to go into the pet store, but it's not open yet. So we're going to be on the Super Deck Sunday, and I'm going to try to be patient, but it's probably not going to go super well. And then we're going to go in the pet store afterwards, and maybe Daddy will film that too. Who knows? Anyways, I did my part, Daddy. Now give me the rest of the bacon from this morning. You promised. I did. And it warmed up some while it was sitting up there while we were driving around. So it's nice and heated for you now. Back up. Back up. There you go. That's what's left. Okay. You enjoy that, and I will do the deck. And then you can take a little nap. Maybe. So today's deck, we are going back to Magic, of course, as Kaiba pointed out, and we are doing Rogues. This is my upgraded version of the Sneak Attack deck. For the record, the Sneak Attack deck was a pretty badass deck out of the box, and I've probably kept a solid 35-40% at least of it intact. Maybe even more. It could even be closer to half of the deck is still intact. But the stuff that I've added in has definitely made this deck insanely good. I can't tell you what bracket it is yet because I didn't get a chance to upload it this morning. So I'm not 100% sure if there's any game changers in it. Although I'm pretty sure there aren't, because I thought... Oh my goodness. Are you coming over to help with the deck video? Yeah? You're going to help with the deck video? Oh, I see. Okay. You help. You're a good boy. Yes, you're a good boy. Yeah. We'll zoom out so the humans can see you a little better. Whoop. Really? I guess that was better. Yeah, okay. Anywho, so as I was saying, what I've added into this deck definitely makes it more insane. But I did know that there was at least one game changer in this deck already, because it got added to the game changers list recently, which is the, I think it's called Snooping Newsy or something like that. Basically, when this card's in play, if somebody were to draw a card other than their first card, instead, they don't get to draw, I get to draw a card. It's a really mean card, and not one that I necessarily wanted to keep in the deck because, honestly, it's a 3/1. And this deck wants to swing, and swinging with a 3/1 is kind of pointless. And at the same time, blocking with a 3/1 is also pointless. So I just really did not like the idea of having it in the deck if it was the only game changer. And as far as I know, it is. So I think this is a bracket 2 deck, technically, which you're going to see is pretty insane as we get going through it. So, since I showed you that it was a Sneak Attack deck already, this is not going to be a spoiler, obviously. But the commander of this deck is Anowon The Rune Thief. Yeah! So Anowon has a pretty cool ability. He gives all my other rogues a +1/+1 buff. And whenever one or more rogues I control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If they happen to mill at least 1 creature card this way, I get to draw a card. So essentially the goal of this deck is to swing at everybody, make them mill cards, and then hope like heck that I get to draw. And there are a couple other ways that I can get some card draw out of this deck as well, but the main goal of this deck is to essentially mill everybody out. So this is kind of like my blue deck, except instead of trying to mill myself out and everybody alongside me, this is more, I'm going to mill you, I'm going to steal your shit, I'm going to kick your butt with your shit, and you're not going to like it. It's a very twisted little bit of a deck, but like I say, it was mostly built this way from the get-go. In terms of the lands, I really haven't changed many of the lands either. I don't think. I might have added 2. Maybe 3. So we got our command tower. Classic. I did put in a Field of Ruin because I felt that was just too good a land not to include in this deck, since it will get everybody a landfall first off. But more so than anything else, I can destroy something that might be a problem. The one thing that I've run into when I play decks that want to swing, especially when I face against black players, is they have a land, and I can't remember what the land is called. But if they tap that land, I'm pretty sure it's black in color, which is weird. But if you tap this land, you can negate an attack, essentially. Which I really don't need that happening when I'm trying to swing in with unblockable nonsense. So this is mainly in here to destroy that land if somebody plays it. Path of Ancestry is brilliant in this deck because it's all rogues. So with that being said, actually there's like 7 cards that are not rogues. But every other creature is a rogue, so every other creature is going to trigger this and let me scry one, which is fantastic. Restless Reef. Was that an add-in? I think that was an add-in. Yes. Okay. And Restless Reef is the other add-in land. I like this one a lot. Taps for blue or black. It does come into play tapped, which is unfortunate. But you can pay 2, a blue and a black, to make this into a 4/4 blue and black shark with Death Touch, and then it's still land. And whenever this thing attacks, you can pick a player and make that player mill 4. So even if you choose to attack, say, one player at the table, you can make a completely different player mill the 4, which is fantastic. So I love this land. There's a solid chance that somebody's going to try and block and kill it, but it's still a fun thing to play. Rogue's Passage is that an add-in, or did that come with this? I think that came with this. And I mean, Rogue's Passage is just perfect for this deck because, of course, it's rogues. And you can pay 4 to make a creature unblockable, which is basically the name of the game in this deck. There's at least 10 creatures, but I want to say there's closer to like 15 that are all potentially unblockable in this deck. And then the rest of these lands are all swamps and islands. I did include a couple different islands, but for the most part, it's all the same lands that were in here before. A couple different swamps too, but not very many different ones. Mostly, I actually felt that this deck needed a bit of extra land, to be honest. I originally, when I first got it, I think I pulled out a bunch of the duos, and I pulled out most of the mana rocks, and started playing with it. And Snoop will like to rub this in my face, probably, but I'll let you do it anyways, buddy. Yes, this deck had some issues with lands before. Currently, the land total in this deck is 35, and I think that's a pretty decent land count for this deck, in my opinion. With all the different card draw and stuff that's going on, I'm pretty happy with 35. Next up, we're going to cover the 3, there are 2 enchantments in this deck and 1 planeswalker. And basically I'm going to cover them all at once now because they're all in here for the same reason. They all give me some extra card draw. So we've got Jace Memory Adept, perfect planeswalker for this deck. I can draw a card and then I can make any player put the top card of their library into their graveyard. Or for 0, I can make one player put the top 10 cards of their library into their graveyard. So that's fun for the milling part. And then if I actually want to ultimate it, which I'm probably never going to do, to be perfectly honest, but if I ever did, any number of players will draw 20 cards each. I mean, it is a good way to close out the game if I can get people milled down enough, but I don't have anything in here that lets me actually have no maximum hand size, so me drawing 20 cards just means that I'm going to be discarding a whole bunch of things that I probably want to play with. Next up, I have Helm of the Gas Lord. I love this card. There aren't a lot of blue-black creatures in this deck, unfortunately. There's a lot more mono-colored creatures, per se. But if I can put this onto my commander, for example, if the creature is blue, when the creature deals damage to an opponent, I get to draw a card, and it gets +1/+1. If the creature is black, it also gets an additional +1/+1. And when it deals damage to an opponent, that player has to discard a card. I love this thing. It's a very vicious little card. Apparently it went up in price significantly recently. I can't remember how much it is now. I forgot to check, but like about a month or so ago, I think it was like in the teens or something. Canadian money, but still. And then I have a military intelligence here. I'm going to be always swinging with more than 2 creatures if I have 2 creatures on board. So I'm going to be getting that extra card draw off of this if I can keep it in play. I did not really think that there needed to be that many enchantments in this deck, though, to be perfectly honest, because there's just so many good artifacts we're going to see in a bit. But first, we're going to cover the instants and I think the sorceries. Instants first. We've got Murder, Classic, Bleed Dry, basically in here to do the same thing. And then I've got a couple counter spells. I've got a Negate. Watch your face, baby. I don't want you to get cut by a card coming in. I know, you want to help. You're a good boy. I've got a Sinister Sabotage. This is probably my favorite counter spell, to be honest, in all of Magic so far. I just love the way this one works. It counters target spell no matter what it is, and you get to surveil one off of it, which is pretty nice. Brain Freeze is next. This one's probably my favorite instant in this deck, to be honest. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and then this thing has Storm. So I'm probably not going to play this on my turn. I'm going to try and set this up to play on somebody else's turn who's popping off a lot, and then just mill them for like 9, 12 cards, hopefully. I have an Aetherize in here to protect my stuff in case I end up being swung at hard when I can't defend myself. This one is a particularly fun spell for this deck. As I say, we kind of like to take stuff from people in this deck, so I have a Memory Plunder. It costs 4 blue or black in any combination, but when you cast this, if it gets through, you can play target instant or sorcery in an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Now, the downside is I think that the timing, I think you have to play by the timing rules, which means if you're going for a sorcery, you would have to play this on your turn. But it's still a wicked cool card and has a lot of versatility to it. Spinal Embrace is another fun one to just steal some stuff. I can only cast this during combat, but I untap target creature I don't control. I gain control of it. It gains haste until end of turn. And then at the beginning of my next end step, I sacrifice it. And if I do, I gain life equal to its toughness. Now, what I love about this card is technically I can play this on my turn or my opponent's turn. It doesn't say on my combat step. It just says only during combat. So if somebody goes to swing at me, I can steal somebody else's creature and use it to block their creature. And then if it survives, I also get to sacrifice their creature and get the life gain, instead of ending up losing life out of the attack phase. Love that card. And then, finally, one more steel card that I just think is fun. Fated Return. It costs quite a bit to put into play, don't get me wrong. But you get to put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains Indestructible. And then if it's your turn, you get to scry 2. Another one that's an instant, so in theory, if you have enough mana open and it's your opponent's turn and you're getting swung at, you could pull something out of the graveyard, particularly something nasty that has, say, Death Touch or something, put it onto your field, give it Indestructible, and I don't think that's for just until end of turn either. I think that's permanently. And then you get to also potentially scry 2 if it is your turn. But I mean, if you're doing it on your opponent's turn, that's still just a wicked play to do. Like I said, this deck is kind of it's got a little bit of a bite to it. And then we'll do the sorceries next. We've got the next 3 cards all help with the unblockable stuff that I was saying before. So I do have a whole bunch of creatures that already have unblockable. But for the creatures that don't, we have Ghost Form. Up to 2 target creatures can't be blocked this turn. Stealth Mission. I can put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature, and that creature can't be blocked this turn. And Open into Wonder. 2 blue and X paid, and then I can pick X target creatures, and all those creatures can't be blocked until end of turn. Plus, I get the bonus ability that if they deal combat damage to a player, I draw a card. So this one's just fantastic. And I mean, that one was in this deck already. So is the next card. Extract from Darkness came with this deck. 3 a blue and a black. Each player mills 2 cards. Then you can put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And it can be anybody's graveyard, and it doesn't have to be one of the ones that just got milled. So, phenomenal sorcery. Notion Rain, surveil 2, draw 2 cards, and then this thing deals 2 damage to you. Just beautiful because it's cheap and it does so much. And again, if I'm stuck, say, for land or something, this is a fantastic way to just get through to hopefully something else. The next 4 spells are all really vicious because they all let me either take something from somebody else or they... Well, okay. I'm not going to spoil it. Let's just get into it. First, we got Rise from the Grave. Put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. I wish it was turned into a rogue instead, but I mean, still, I'm getting anybody's creature. That's pretty solid for 5. Endless Obedience for 6, but it has Convoke, so I can play it for 2 if I want to tap enough creatures. Put target card from a target creature card, from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Next up, we have 2 board wipes. The first one, this is why I was stumbling over my words, because this one actually does both. It board wipes and gives me something back. Necromantic Selection. Destroy all creatures and return a creature card put into the graveyard from the field by this card onto the battlefield under my control. It becomes a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types, and then this thing gets exiled. So a lot of value coming out of this card for sure. And then the other board wipe of this deck, which again, all these cards came with this pretty much. I think the only ones that I've added in were the Notion Rain, the Stealth Mission, and the Ghost Form. Everything else that you're seeing right now, all these sorceries were in this deck originally. Garruk's Awake. In Garruk's Awake costs 7 and 2 black, so it's an expensive mother effing spell, but destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So you're basically just setting the board open for you to just wipe out everybody on this turn if you can pull this off. And they don't have anything else to stop you. And then the final card that came with this deck, which is insane, and honestly, this might push it into a bracket 3, and if it does, I would still say that that's fine. I would play this as a bracket 3. I'm not putting it in a bracket 4, though. But this could definitely be a fair bracket 3 deck. Notorious Throng. 3 and a blue, but it costs 5 and a blue for the Prowl. And you definitely want to play it for the Prowl. What you're going to do is you're going to create X 1/1 black fairy creature tokens with flying, where fairy rogue creature tokens, very specific. Where X is a damage dealt to your opponents this turn. So the amount of damage that you deal determines how many tokens you get. You play this after you've done the dealt the combat damage to a player with a rogue, because if you do, you also get to get an extra turn. So what I love about this is if you can do this correctly and you can't be stopped, this becomes insane. I've pulled it off once and only once, and I wish I had like a recording of it to show you, but I don't. But basically one time I pulled off playing this turn 1, getting the extra turn, and turn 2 playing this, and then swinging for game. It is an insane combo if you can pull it off, but it is a ridiculously, like, the amount of salt that you cause with that combo, but the amount of fun to play that combo, it is so good. I know. The store will be open very soon. Don't worry. You still have a little bit of bacon over here. You just didn't want to finish it because you wanted to sit on Daddy's lap. And I'm okay with that. I like it when you sit with Daddy, yes. Oh, you're a good boy. Now, the next card I'm going to show you, or next we're going into the artifacts. First, let's just get out of the way. This deck did come with a Soul Ring, and it is the only mana rock that I kept in this deck. I do not believe I have any other mana rocks in this deck before I say that. No. It's a classic include for Commander, and why not? Get the extra 2 mana, I mean... It would be silly for me not to do it, to be perfectly honest. This next card was, I was torn back and forth about this one, because I had a really cool enchantment that I was thinking about putting in this deck. It's one that I originally was going to put into my zombie deck, or it came from my zombie deck. I took it out of there to put it into this deck, and then realized that I would rather put this card in and save the enchantment for my vampire deck, because my vampire deck doesn't have blue. So, the card for this deck is called Mask of Riddles. Equip 2, costs blue and a black to put into play, 2 to equip, gives the equipped creature fear, so it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. So, essentially, you're equipping this to something and then swinging at the green player at the table. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card, so bonus. But the main thing, again, is we want a lot of stuff to be unblockable. Because the more stuff that gets through unblockable, the more we trigger Anowon's ability. And the goal is to keep Anowon on the field as much as we possibly can as well. I originally thought about putting something in here to protect Anowon, and I haven't as of yet. Simply because I like this card better. But I am really tempted to go back and get like a... I'm pretty sure I still have a copy of Swiftfoot Boots or the Gauntlets. I forget what the gauntlets are called. Shoot. I can't believe I forget what the gauntlets are called. You know, like the bracelets that give you Shroud and Haste, I believe it is. I can't remember what they're called for the life of me right now. Anyways, I was originally going to put one of those cards in here, but instead I thought this seems like just a fun extra include. Codex Shredder. Cost 1 to put into play, tap it, and somebody mills a card. Pay 5 and tap it, and then I can return a target card from my graveyard to my hand. So what I love about this is it's very versatile in that it does the thing that I want to do with this deck. I'm getting an extra mill every turn. And in addition to that, it always sits on the field as like a bonus threat for me to return anything that I potentially want from my graveyard back to my hand. So it becomes one of those cards that you kind of have to want to remove. And because of that, I'm hoping it will mean that some people will leave some of my other cards alone, per se. Because none of these artifacts are going to be very nice coming up. Obelisk of Erd is next. It has Convoke, so you can actually put it into play for free if you tap enough stuff. When it comes into play, you choose a creature type, obviously rogues. And all the creatures of the chosen type are getting +2/+2. So it's just a way to buff up my stuff more. And then with Anowon on the field, that's just more damage potentially if I'm swinging for unblockable. Good times, good times. Heirloom Blade is next. It's a +3/+1 for 3 and equip 1. And whenever the equipped creature dies, you can reveal cards from the top of your library until reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with that card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Basically, I'm just adding extra rogues into my hand, and that's basically it. This might be the one card that I would pull out for the Shrouds. Shroud. Oh, come on. I'm so close. Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves is what I'm thinking of. Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots. I'm really tempted to take this out and put Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots into the deck, but so far I like what this does in my deck just because it does let me add that extra rogue into my hand. The next 4 become much more disturbing as we go. Bone Horde is up first. It has Living Weapon, so when I put it into play, I get to create a gerb and attach it to this. And then the equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So this deck doing what it does means that the germ is going to get really big, but I'm probably going to equip it onto one of my rogues and then swing for a massive amount of damage and make you mill out the rest of your deck. And if that doesn't work, we have a Whisper Steel Dagger. Equip 2 and a black, equip 3. And equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn. And you can spend mana as though or mana of any color to cast that spell. Essentially, if I have enough mana open, this means that I can replay stuff from people's graveyards, and again, it's just a fun little thing to throw around. Mean little card to have in the deck. Scytheclaw. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. If it deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life, rounded up. Again, I have a ridiculous amount of unblockable stuff in this deck, as you're about to see in the creature pile. And so if I equip this to any of those and they deal damage, you're losing a whole bunch. And the pièce de résistance, my personal favorite for this deck because it's just so much fun. Blackblade Reforged. There are a decent number of legendary creatures in this deck, so there's a solid chance it's going on one of those for 3 instead of the whole pay 7. But regardless, +1/+1 for every land I control, and then swinging for unblockable damage? Insane! So, now let's get into the creatures. Yes, baby. I'm in the last pile. The first up pile of the creatures, we have 6 here that have no rogue status. These are the non-rogue cards. So we've got Una, Queen of Fae. She's in here not because she is a rogue, but because she makes rogues. She makes a lot of rogues. Flying, 5/5 for 3 and a combination of 3 blue or black. Choose a color by paying blue or black and X. Target player exiles the top cards of their library, X cards, and for each card of the chosen color exiled this way, I get to create a fairy rogue. She's just going to produce a massive amount of bodies on my board, which is why she's in this deck. She originally came with this deck too, and I didn't see a good reason not to keep her in there. Same with Lazav, Dimir Mastermind. There's just no real good reason not to include this in my deck. 2 blue and 2 black, 3/3, hexproof. The only downside is it's a shapeshifter, but it doesn't actually have the ability where it can be any type, which is kind of a boop. But whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, I can have this thing become a copy of that card. Except its name is still this. It's a legendary in addition to its other types, and it still has hexproof and the same ability to keep doing that. So essentially, I can take a clone of anything that you have in play. These two are add-ins, but they're both really good add-ins for this deck. Phoenix, God of Deception, 3 a blue and a black for 4/7. Indestructible. As long as I have devotion less than 7 to blue and black, this thing doesn't count as a creature, so it counts as an enchantment, which means I technically have 3 enchantments. And creatures you control have tap. Target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is that creature's toughness. This thing is going to make it so much fun. Even if I can't swing, I can still mill you out. So if you have one of those like Ghostly Prison or something like that in play, I can still find a way to get around it. The Ancient One is next. He only costs 1 blue and 1 black to put into play. The issue is you have to get 8 or more permanent cards into your graveyard before you can actually block or attack with him. But once you can block or attack with him, he's an 8/8 boy on the field. And you can still do his ability anytime, which is to pay 2 a blue and a black, draw a card, discard a card, and when you discard a card this way, you can pick a player and make them mill cards equal to the mana value of the card you discarded. So as long as you're not discarding lands, you're going to be making people mill quite a bit. And you've seen a lot of high-cost cards already in this deck, so that god is pretty solid on in this lineup as well. The next 2 cards were were original parts of this deck. We've got Consuming Aberration, which does the exact same thing as the Bone Heart. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in opponent's graveyards, actually, instead of everybody's. But it counts all cards, not just creatures. So it's still going to be really beefy. It's just a slightly different calculation. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land. And all those cards go to their graveyards. So this one's pretty mean. But again, it's doing exactly what we want to do in this deck. We want to mill everybody out. That is the goal of this deck. I am going to mill all 3 players at the table out before turn 7 or 8, let's say, if I can possibly pull it off. Night Howler, 1 and 2 black. This one also technically counts as an enchantment because you can bestow it for 2 and 2 black. And it does the exact same thing. Enchanted creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So this is the one that's like the Bone Horde, sorry. The last one was slightly different. This is the Bone Horde copy, but enchantment form. And what I love about Bestow is if I enchant a creature with this, and then the enchanted creature dies, or this gets destroyed for whatever reason, it just becomes a creature again. instead of going to the graveyard. So pretty cool. Mocking Sprite, 2 and a blue. This one reduces the cost of all my instants and sorceries. As you saw, I have some fairly expensive instants and sorceries in this deck. So the fact that it's also a fairy rogue just made it a perfect include. I'm not going to be swinging with this one, probably, unless a person doesn't have flying blockers. But I definitely will be abusing the cost reduce. Now, next up, I love this one too. We got a Frog Tosser Banneret, 1 and a black for a 1/1 Goblin Rogue, haste, and it reduces the cost of all my Goblin and Rogue spells by 1. Now, what I like about this is what it does for the next card in my deck. But it does reduce the cost of all my rogues in general, which is amazing. And by the way, we are now in the rogue core, so everything else in this deck is technically a rogue. There is one exception, but it counts as a rogue because it has that ability that I was mentioning earlier, which was called Changeling, apparently. Stink Drinker Bandit. I love this little guy. He's such a goofy little guy. So he's 3 and a black for a 2/1. But if I happen to have Frog Tosser Banneret out, because he's a Goblin Rogue, he technically only costs 1 and a black, because he's a Goblin and a Rogue. So he gets the reduced cost for both, I think. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. He also has a prowl cost, so I mean I can play him for 1 and a black anyways, which is fantastic because that means I can play him for black, essentially, for the prowl cost. And whenever a rogue I control deals attacks, if it isn't blocked, it gets an additional +2/+1 until end of turn. So a nice little extra buff on all my rogues. The next 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards can all technically be unblockable or give unblockable to something else in some way, shape, or form. Slitherblade, Naga Rogue, 1/2 for 1 blue, can't be blocked. Triton Stalker, 1 blue for a 1/1 that can't be blocked. Yes, there's puppies walking over there. You're okay. You're okay. Please don't knock over the camera. You're okay. Kaiba, you're okay. You're okay. We're going to finish up the video soon. Sherfield. I know. I see them. I see them. All right. You gotta go over there and bark. Go over there and bark. No? Okay. You're okay, baby. I promise. We're going to go in the pet store after I finish this video. Sure-footed Infiltrator. It's a little more expensive to get this one on the field, but I like this one. 3 and a blue for a 2/3. I can tap any of my other rogues to make this unblockable. And if it deals combat damage to a player, I get to draw a card. So I'm already automatically getting a card off of this one, in addition to the card I could possibly get with the military intelligence and the Anowon on board. Gravegill Scoundrel, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 with Vigilance. So fantastic, because I can swing with this one and block with this one. And whenever it attacks, I can tap another untapped creature I control and make it unblockable. Death Cult Rogue. Unless somebody else is playing rogues, this guy is going to be unblockable. Invisible Stalker, Hexproof, and can't be blocked. Changeling Outcast. Technically a shapeshifter, but it has the Changeling. Why do you not have the Changeling Dimir guy? Anyways, can't block and can't be blocked, so definitely swinging with this one at all times. Rang River Prowler, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 that can't be blocked and can't block. I can also cast this one from my graveyard as long as I control a black or green permanent, so I can keep bringing this one back if you destroy it, as long as I have one of my many other cards on the field. But as you may have noticed, there is not a lot of dual colored, as I said before. There was a lot of dual colored at the beginning there, but the rogues themselves are all pretty much one color or the other, with the exception of the Death Cult Rogue so far. Whirler Rogue is the last one that can do some stuff. He enters, he gives me Thopters, and then I can tap those Thopters and make him unblockable. Or any creature that I want. So he's pretty versatile for that reason. Then we have our Zulaport Cutthroat. I love this guy because whenever he or another creature I control dies, everybody loses a life and I gain a life. So I'm not going to probably be swinging with him. He's one of the ones that I might tap to let some of the other guys swing for unblockable. And then if anybody on my field dies, you guys pay a price. Next up is a particular favorite of mine, and again, one that came with the deck. Flying Una's Blackguard. 1 and a black for 1/1. Every other rogue I control enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature I control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So as long as she's on the field, you're milling cards and you're potentially milling cards, and you're also discarding cards if I hit you with a rogue. And we've got a lot of unblockable rogues here. So, good times. Soaring Thought Thief. I'm surprised this one doesn't this one isn't a game changer, to be honest. Blue and black for a 1/3, flash flying. As long as your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, all your rogues get +1/+0. So, fantastic for this deck. And whenever one or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. So, I'm going to be making you guys mill an extra 2 cards in addition to the cards you mill for your damage if this guy is out every time I swing. Night Veil Sprite, flying. Whenever it attacks, I get to surveil 1. It's not quite as good as card draw, but it does let me get through my deck if I'm stuck on something. And again, solid chance I'm going to swing with it at the person who doesn't have flying blockers so that I can also trigger Anowon or whatever else. Scurrilous Sentry, 3 and a black. It's a little expensive for a 2/3, but this one has Menace, which is nice. So it's already going to be hard enough to block stuff in my deck, and now you've got to block this one with 2 things. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, it also connives. So I get to draw a card and then discard a card, and if I discard a non-land card, I get to put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. So that is pretty solid too. And then I don't think it works with the one there, but no. I was hoping, but I was wrong. That's okay though. Still pretty solid. Next up, we got Night Market Lookout. 1 black for a 1/1. Whenever it becomes tapped, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. Another one that is going to be fun to include in this deck for tapping to let other rogues become unblockable. I can also just, make this unblockable somehow and swing with it. Enigma Thief came with the deck. 5 and 2 blue, but you can also pay 3 and a blue if you attacked with a rogue and dealt damage. Or a Sphinx, apparently, but I don't have any other Sphinx in this deck. 5/5 with flying is what the main reason it's in here, but what I also love about this is when it enters the battlefield, each opponent has to return up to 1 target non-land permanent they control to their hand. So if I choose to put this in before battle, it costs a lot extra, but I can remove 3 things that might be problemsome. If I choose to play this after battle, potentially maybe I have extra mana to do something else with, or I don't know what. But I'm just saying, it's an interesting include in the deck, for sure. Another one that came with the deck is Master Thief. 2 and 2 blue for 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, I get to take an artifact from somebody and keep it for as long as I control Master Thief. So probably not swinging with Master Thief, probably using him to do some tapping and other stuff, but I get to take whatever artifact I want from somebody else's board. That's insane. I mean, imagine all the cool, swords that are out there right now that I could take. Or I don't even know what off the top of my head. There's just so many. And he's definitely proved very useful in games before. A new add-in that I recently pulled from one of the Dollarama packs, which has been a fun pull for sure for me, is the Syndicate Enforcer. I used to actually have a Cryptghast in here, and I decided to pull the Cryptghast because there just isn't enough swamps in this deck that I felt like it was worth keeping it for the double mana. If I had a way to make everything into a swamp, that would be different, like you saw in my zombie deck, but I only had 1 copy of that weird wizard that turns lands into swamps. So, anyways, this one's 3 and a black for a 3/2, and it has the Extort, which is the main reason it's in here, because I can just keep making you guys lose life whenever I cast spells. But again, it is a rogue, so I can also swing with it. This one, you guys probably saw me pull in the last couple months and ooh and ah over a lot, and I was really torn over whether to put this into a vampire deck or a rogue deck, and I decided the rogue deck was just too much value. So 1 and 2 black for Vampire or Nighthawk Scavenger. It has 1 and plus star, flying, death touch, lifelink, and then 3 on the butt. Its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in my opponent's graveyard. So with all the milling I'm doing, there's a solid chance that this thing's going to at least be a 3/3, if not like potentially maybe even a 5/3 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. And then if I make this unblockable, ooh, baby. All the good stuff that comes out of that. Next we have Sig River Cutthroat, because he, had to be in here. And he's perfect. Blue and black, 2 in any combination. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, I can draw a card. That's going to be happening frequently with this deck, so I'm going to be getting extra draw card bonus there. Tiny Bones the Pickpocket, 1 black for a 1/1 with Death Touch, Skeleton Rogue. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, I can cast target non-land permanent from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. Beautiful little guy, and so very helpful. And when I make him unblockable, that is just chef's kiss in this deck. Renko, Master of Pranks, 3/3, 2 and 2 black for a Fairy Rogue, flying haste. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, in addition to all the other crap that I'm doing, I can also make any of the number following happen. I can make all of us discard a card. I can make all of us lose a life and draw a card. And I can make all of us sacrifice a creature. Probably not doing the third one, to be honest. I don't really see myself sacrificing stuff unless I have a whole bunch of 1/1 Fairy Rogues sitting around to, get rid of. But the first two, probably happening quite frequently. Next is a new one that we pulled recently as well, and a fantastic card for this deck. Zareth San, the Trickster. 4/4 for 3, a blue, and a black. He has flash, so you can put him in cheaply. And you can actually put him in even cheaper still by paying 2, a blue, and a black, and returning an unblocked attacking rogue to its owner's hand. Technically, that I control. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to say what I was going to say and make myself look foolish. I can put this guy from my hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking in its place, essentially. So I can replace one of my 1/1s with a 4/4. Basically, this card has ninjutsu on a rogue, which is hilarious. And then, whenever he deals combat damage to a player, if I can put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under my control without paying any mana cost for that. So this is just all in all, like, probably the most insane value of all the cards in this deck. Outside of my commander. Because he is just so much fun and what he does. And then finally, the last card of the deck, and one of my other favorites for sure, is Cridle of Baldur's Gate. A blue and a black for a 1/3. Whenever this thing deals combat damage to a player, that player loses 1 life and mills a card. Then I gain 1 life and scry 1. That's in addition to all the other crap that I'm doing normally. So if I make this guy unblockable, nonsense goes on. In addition to that, whenever I attack, I can pay 2. And if I do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So he also gives my entire board unblockable if I have enough mana open. This deck hits hard, hits fast. It makes, the only downside to this deck is you do have to, of course, get all the lands out there, and there is not really a lot of ramp going on in this deck. So, for the first, 3 or 4 turns, if I, get targeted early on, there's not a lot I can do other than I do have a whole bunch of creatures that are 1 cost, 2 cost, that I can hopefully draw and throw out there as blockers if need be. But once this deck starts cooking, this deck is pretty hard to stop. And that is my blue-black Mill Rogues I'm Gonna Steal Your Stuff deck. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Super Deck Sunday. I have a very antsy pug that wants to get into the pet store. So, thank you for watching. Much love to you all. From Kaiba and myself to you, take care. And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.